Imagine living with someone you've always seen as family. Like, they've been there for you through thick and thin, the person who knows all your quirks. Now imagine one quiet afternoon. You come home and catch them in a totally unexpected moment. One that completely flips everything you thought you knew about your relationship. It's a moment that goes from awkward to something you never saw coming. This story isn't what you think, but trust me, it's one you won't want to miss till the very end. It was one of those long, quiet afternoons where time seemed to slow down, and the whole house was filled with a warm, serene stillness. I had been out for groceries, just doing my usual rounds, picking up a few things my aunt needed. She had always taken care of me, and now that I was staying with her temporarily, I tried to help out where I could. Living with her felt natural, comfortable, like coming home. It had been a while since I felt that way, and I appreciated it more than I ever let on. As I pushed the front door open, bags in hand, I called out, "Hey, I am back," expecting to hear her cheerful voice respond from somewhere inside. But there was silence. I assumed she might be in her room or just wrapped up in something. So I went straight to the kitchen, setting down the bags, and started unpacking. The house was warm and peaceful, and I let myself relax, glad to be back. After putting things away, I decided to check on her. Maybe she was in her room reading or resting. She loved those little quiet moments to herself. I walked down the hallway, my footsteps soft on the wooden floor, and as I approached her door, I noticed it was slightly open. I figured it would be polite to knock or call out to let her know I was there, but something made me pause. Through the narrow gap in the door, I could see her sitting on the edge of the bed, her head bowed slightly, as if she was deep in thought. Her expression was softer than usual, a bit lost, maybe even vulnerable. It struck me because I had always seen her as strong, someone who held everything together. I had never seen her look so unguarded. I felt a pull, a desire to comfort her, to somehow reach out and let her know that I was there. Just as I was about to knock, she shifted, and I could see her close her eyes, lost in her thoughts. A strange feeling washed over me, an awareness of her that I had never experienced before. She looked beautiful in the soft afternoon light, and I suddenly found myself unable to move, captivated by the moment. I knew it was wrong to watch, that I should have turned away, but something held me there, something I could not quite understand. It was as if I was seeing her in a new light, as a person, not just as my aunt. A rush of emotions swirled within me, feelings I had not expected or prepared for. I felt warmth, admiration, and, surprisingly, a longing to be close to her, to know her beyond the casual conversations we usually shared. It was confusing, and I found myself struggling to make sense of what I was feeling. She seemed so at peace, so comfortable in her own skin, and I realized how much I admired her strength, her warmth, and everything she represented to me. Suddenly, she opened her eyes, catching sight of me standing there. Her face flushed with surprise, but she did not look away. We locked eyes, and in that instant, there was an unspoken understanding between us, a silent exchange that felt deeper than any words we could have shared. I felt my own face grow warm, but I did not move, captivated by the moment, by the vulnerability in her gaze. She looked at me for a long moment, her expression a mixture of surprise and something else, something softer. I could see her trying to process what was happening, her eyes searching mine, and I felt my heart pounding in my chest. It was as if all the usual boundaries between us had dissolved, leaving us standing there vulnerable and open. "David, I did not realize you were back," she said softly, her voice carrying a warmth that made my heart ache. There was no embarrassment, no urge to pull away, just a quiet acceptance that felt strangely comforting. I just wanted to check on you," I replied, my voice a little shaky. "I saw the door open, and I thought you might need something." I could not bring myself to look away, drawn in by the softness in her gaze, the way her vulnerability seemed to mirror my own. For a moment, neither of us moved. The air felt thick, charged with something I could not quite explain. All the casual conversations, the laughter, the shared meals, they suddenly felt like pieces of a deeper connection, a bond that went beyond words. I realized, standing there, that I cared about her in a way I had not fully understood until now. It was not just admiration. It was a genuine closeness, a desire to be there for her, to understand the woman behind the role she played in my life. "I have always appreciated having you here," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It has been nice to have someone to share the little things with." Her words hung in the air, filled with an honesty that seemed to echo my own unspoken thoughts. She took a step closer, and I felt my pulse quicken, every nerve in my body suddenly on high alert. My mind was racing, yet everything felt clear, as if the world had narrowed down to just the two of us in that room. I wanted to reach out, to let her know that I understood, that I felt the same way. But I hesitated, unsure of how to bridge the gap between us, unsure of what this feeling truly meant. As if sensing my uncertainty, she placed a gentle hand on my arm, her touch warm and reassuring. "You do not have to say anything," she said softly, her eyes meeting mine with a quiet intensity. "Just know that I am grateful for you. Truly." Her words brought a flood of emotions rushing to the surface, a mixture of relief, admiration, and a yearning I could not quite put into words. I felt the weight of all the unspoken moments between us, the quiet companionship we had shared, and I realized that those moments had woven a bond that ran deeper than I had allowed myself to see. Without thinking, I placed my hand over hers, feeling the warmth of her skin against mine. It was a simple gesture, yet it felt profound, as if we were acknowledging something we had both felt but never expressed. Her eyes softened, and I saw a glimmer of something in her gaze, a depth of feeling that mirrored my own. The room felt smaller, and time seemed to slow as we stood there, connected by that simple touch. I could feel her hand relax under mine, as though the walls we had both carefully built were finally coming down. It was surreal, feeling this closeness, this unspoken understanding that passed between us. The line between us blurred, and I found myself wanting to be even closer to her, to explore the feelings that had surfaced so unexpectedly. "Aunt Clara?" I said softly, my voice filled with the weight of everything I was feeling. "I do not think I ever realized how much you mean to me, until now." Her expression softened even more, and a small, tender smile appeared on her lips. She looked at me with a warmth that made me feel seen, understood in a way that I had not felt before. "David, you mean a great deal to me too," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Her gaze lingered, and I could see a spark there, something unguarded, and my heart raced, knowing that this moment was real, that we were both experiencing it fully. I felt compelled to close the gap, and as I leaned in, I felt her hand shift slightly, her fingers brushing against mine. Our faces were close, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her breath, see the gentle rise and fall of her shoulders. It was a moment suspended in time, filled with unspoken emotions that neither of us could deny. Then, almost instinctively, our lips met in a tender, hesitant kiss. It was soft, respectful, yet filled with a deep affection that took me by surprise. All the tension, the unexpressed feelings, and the quiet moments we had shared seemed to come together, creating a feeling of warmth and belonging that felt undeniable. Her hand remained on my arm, grounding me, reminding me that this was real, that she was here with me, sharing this moment. When we pulled back, she looked at me with a gentle smile, her eyes filled with understanding. "This is unexpected, David," she whispered, her voice steady yet filled with warmth. "But I trust you, and I know that we can face whatever this means together." A sense of peace settled over me as I looked at her, feeling the depth of our connection and the unbreakable bond we had formed. I realized that, no matter what the future held, we would face it together, with honesty and understanding. And as I held her hand, feeling the closeness between us, I knew that this was just the beginning of a journey that would bring us even closer, bound by the trust and affection we had for each other.